Hey everybody, Jason here. Headed to work. Been reading some. I read a lot. I read a lot in general. Not as much as I used to since I've had a kid and everything. Not as much time and not as much energy. Reading actually puts me to sleep now. I don't know if it's because I read every night before bed and my brain associates reading with sleep. I'm not sure if that's why. But I've been playing some board games at lunch, mini board games. I love mini board games because you can get a couple, sometimes one to a couple games in an hour-long lunch. Which usually it's not a full hour of playtime. Usually we have 10 or 15 minutes of actual eating, and then, the other half hour, 45 minutes or whatever, usually is spent playing games. Usually a game. We usually don't play different types of games in one day. But we've been playing all kinds of stuff. But today, for work, I brought Dracaris dice and Welcome to the Dungeon. So I'm excited to play those. Obviously, I don't know if you guys have seen all of these games. Welcome to the Dungeon is pretty popular. You can get that one in retail stores now, not just game shops. Actually, the copy that I got it from Target because I was gonna buy it while I was out. I saw it. I've seen it a couple different places. A couple local game stores and things like that for like $15. I was on the fence about it. I knew I wanted to play it, but I was on the fence about it. Do I buy it? Do I wait because I have a lot of mini games at home? And then the family and I were at Target the other day, and they actually had it on one copy on the shelf at Target, clearance for like $10. So I was like, well, I will definitely get it. So I got it at Target for like $10. Normally I kind of reserve stuff like that to get from my local game store, unless I find it super cheap somewhere else. And $5, that's a lot off when a game's normally $15 and it drops down to 10. I mean, that's a third of the price off. So anyway, I picked that up. One thing I'll say about it is, you got some regular 63 by 88 size cards. I don't know the card sleeves are necessary, but the cardboard punch outs, the tiles, I did put those in little mini sleeves because they, cardboard cutouts and punch outs, chits and stuff for games are very hit or miss. You got to be careful because sometimes when you're punching them out, even when you're being careful, they can. That's funny. Lady running two dogs. Looks like one dog with two heads. When you punch them out, they can. Sometimes the layer of decal on the front can kind of rip and separate from the cardboard, and even when you're careful. And these ones did that, started to do that on a couple of them, so I put them in sleeves so they wouldn't rip off any further, and they should be fine. So I'm excited to play that. Dracaris Dice is one of those games where it's released by Ultra Pro, so it's not a super common game as far as I know. The only place I've ever seen it other than online is at Half Price Books, and they must have gotten a surplus of them because there's a bunch of them there at the store when I went. it's one of those games where it's like 90% luck and 10% strategy. If 10%, maybe 95 and 5. It's mostly luck, and it's kind of a filler game, but there's different variants and stuff you can play with it, but it's pretty cool. Each die has 4 symbols, a dragon, a fireball, a knight, and a blank. And then depending on what you roll, you either take your dice out of the game completely, you put them in a communal pool in the middle, re-roll if it's a blank, and then dragons get pushed around or whatever, the other players. And the whole game, the idea of the game is to have no dice, but it's like a quick little filler game. And for some reason, I love filler games. I'm the kind of person that can sit and play multiple games of filler games. I don't know why. I just love mini games and filler games. But cool game. So probably try one or both of those out today at work if we have time. I know we have time for either or. I don't know about both. But and I've been reading some other games and stuff. Now that I'm sort of free of my 5th edition burden, my burden of the world's worst role-playing game. The world is wide open, which can also present a problem. The choice paralysis, which I definitely get. So many options now. I really, really, really would love to go back and play some 2nd edition AD&D. Which I know a couple of my group members would be totally fine with. One of them would absolutely fucking love it, because that's the game we grew up on. Still my favorite iteration of D&D for numerous reasons. That might be a good game. That might be a good topic video to talk about why I prefer AD&D over modern D&D. And reading some Fantasy Trip, which I've been wanting to play Fantasy Trip for a long time. And let's see, there's another game that I want to play. I really want to play, but I'm holding back on talking about it because I want to do a video dedicated specifically just to that, Shaky Road, and just a number of things. I want to play the Talisman game still. I have not got a chance to run that quick start for Talisman Adventures, so I want to run that, and just a number of things. I want to run some 0th edition D&D, basically a lot of old non-Wizards of the Coast D&D. But some other stuff, I wouldn't mind getting into some Star Wars D6, or some Fantasy Flight Star Wars, either one. I know Fantasy Flight definitely is a little more, there's a little more buy-in to the game because it's so crunchy, in terms of a million different abilities and a million different things your characters can do as far as special powers and abilities and stuff. And the system itself is really easy. The dice system's really easy to learn. You just have to remember what the symbols are, which, after a couple of rolls, you'll start remembering what they are. The tough part is somebody playing who's not really a narrative style gamer, coming up with narrative things for your characters to do with the story dice, which can be a blessing and a curse, but the system itself is really easy. It's just you have a ton of fucking options when you're building your character. There's so many abilities and powers to choose from, and this and that. It's a lot. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Every character can have different abilities and stuff. But you got to wonder, at some point, how often do each of these special abilities possibly come into play? I don't know. I've played it a couple times. I GM'd it a couple of times. I have not had a chance to be a player. I've only GM'd it a few times. But it was fun. I liked it a lot. One of the problems now also is, I'd like to play some Fantasy Age too. But I've been reading a little bit of Nibiru. I've been reading some Fantasy Trip. Here soon, this weekend actually, coming up, I was supposed to play in my first... I couldn't decide what lane he wanted to be in. I'm supposed to be playing in my first session as a player, 5th edition Vampire the Masquerade, which I'm excited about that. I'm playing a Nosferatu, politician. I don't know how well that's gonna play. I wanted to kind of go outside the box and play something I don't normally like to play, and I chose both the clan and the occupation, 2 things I don't necessarily want to play. So we'll see how it goes. It could be really awesome. But this weekend, I forgot. This weekend is my wife and I's. Well, today actually. Happy anniversary. Love you, babe. Today is my wife and I's 3rd anniversary. So this weekend, our dinner reservations are for the same time as our game. So I don't know if they're going to reschedule and play another night, or if they're going to just push it back 2 weeks and we'll play in 2 weeks. That's probably what they'll do since it's the first session. They'll probably just push it back so we can all be involved for the first session. We already had our session 0, which was good. That was pretty fun. And so I'm excited about playing some Vampire. It's not going to be a long chronicle, a long campaign. It's going to be something, as far as I know, it's going to be fairly short, so that's exciting. And especially to play something that's not fantasy. I love fantasy. It's by far my first and foremost choice of genre playing in role-playing games is, fantasy. But I do love other stuff. Sci-fi, modern, horror. I'll pretty much play anything. I don't care if it's comical and silly and cartoony, or if it's like deep and serious and things like that. I don't care if it's modern, historical, fantasy, sci-fi, futuristic. Man, I'll play whatever. I don't care. So I'm excited. A lot of things on the horizon. I don't know what's going to happen with the 5th edition campaign that my friend is running, that I dropped out of. It's not really going to hurt too much for me necessarily to drop out. We've got one guy who, this dumb shit, just pulled a Yui in the middle of the road. Fucking asshole. We have one guy who is not playing because we're playing on Zoom, and another guy who goes to the GM or our friend's house to play on Zoom with him. So 2 guys on one Zoom, and then I'm on Zoom, and then the GM, he's on Zoom also. So 4 of the 5 of us are still playing our D&D campaign that he started. So with me dropping out, that leaves it down to 2 players out of 4. So I don't know if they're going to want to keep playing that, or if he'll just put the whole thing on hold, or what. I really don't know. I know they've invested. I have invested also. I've invested money and time into 5th edition and future 5th edition games. And so have the current GM has invested time and money into current and future 5th edition games. So I feel a little bit bad about dipping out on 5th edition, but it's something that I have to do. I can't help it. I just can't do it, man. I can't fucking do it. Wizards of the Woke, as I call them. have fucked up, and I don't see that getting fixed anytime soon. I think it's just going to get worse. And I'm not sure what they're going to want to do as far as games. I don't know if they're going to want to put that on hold and see if maybe down the road my mind changes. I really don't know. I'm not sure what they're going to do. Or if maybe he'll want to run something besides 5th edition, or maybe they'll want me to run something, which I'm totally happy to do. I've got a number of things I would love to run. I've got the Call of Cthulhu 7th edition starter box. I've got Warhammer 4th edition starter box. I've got some other box sets of things. I would love to run an old 80s TSR Marvel game. I would love to run some Vigilante City by Bloat Games. I would love to run some Blackest of Deaths by Bloat Games. When I get my copy of Survive This Fantasy by Bloat Games, I can definitely see myself running that, because that, I think all of our friends are going to really, really love that. It's just the perfect blend of old school feel with modern mechanics. It kind of bridges the gap there. I mean, a lot of games do that and aim for that. This just, it's got a lot of heart. It's a really cool, real cool game. But anyway, I'm at work. I got to get inside. This is just a little update, I guess, on where I'm at in the gaming world. And thanks for listening, and thanks for watching. And, if you got this far, hopefully I'll have another update soon with some more stuff and let you know how some of these board games have been playing. And we'll talk to you then. Peace.